Okay, so just to deal with the actual proposals here, and just in relation to the potential closure of British waters, to what would actually be involved in that? Would it have to be, like, obviously on the date if the EU withdraws on the 29th of March without an agreement, their waters would officially probably close, but I just wonder what has to happen in order for that to take effect. If you could explain in relation to that. I would just also like to ask then, in relation to payment from the existing EMFF for compensation, what will the impact of that could mean in terms of the projects that are also already been funded, looking for funding under the EMFF, and whether there be enough money there in relation to actually compensate adequately the fishery businesses for the loss of their income in relation to the closure of the UK waters to them. And just wondering if there's any provision within that for compensation of crews, because while the owners of the boats may be compensated, the crew members will actually be out of work. And I'm just wondering, is that something within your department that you would take a view on? And also then, the Minister, you say that the Minister has made it clear that the temporary cessation must be proportionate. I'm just wondering, how is he proposing that works? How actually, you say it there, but I'm just, where is it? Minister has made it clear that there's a temporary cessation that must be used proportionate across the EU fleets. I'm just wondering what the mechanism is that's going to work and what actually that will mean in effect. In relation to the land bridge, now I understand this may not be your concern, but I'm just wondering if you can address it in relation to fisheries exports that are going to the EU and using the land bridge. Obviously, they've been sealed in wherever, Killybegs, Greencastle, or any of the ports, and they'll go across. So the fact that the seal would stay intact, is that enough, or would, in your view, has that been looked at in relation to yourselves and how that would actually work? I'm just wondering if you have any information in relation to the import tariffs that are applicable to seafood, and do you have those in the UK? So while 14% of exports would be impacted, what actually would be the level of impact from those stocks? That's all I have at the minute, Chairman.
Thanks, Deputy Kenny. The one time.
And please call me back when I miss something, and I undoubtedly will. I'll maybe take them in the order in which people came. I suppose the first thing, just to set the context, is it's like for many people in Brexit, it's very hard to be certain what you're dealing with. Right? So, I mean, understand first of all that the scenario that the UK government agreed and is working to still get adopted in the House of Commons, and the EU agreed with, and which Irish government supports, is one which in the fisheries area would lead to a transition period for the remainder of 2019 and 2020 where nothing would change. We would operate under the common fisheries policies as we have in the years coming up. And tax and quotas would be set in December 2019. UK would be outside the door, but they would be set and they would apply to the UK for 2020. Right? By the middle of 2020, the negotiations on the future relationship would have reached a certain point. Fisheries is part of that wider. Okay? And then a decision would have to be taken after that in 2020 on whether or not to extend up to a further year the transition period to allow those negotiations to conclude. So that's if you like, what they call the central case, or the main approach that is still being pursued and sought after, right? So in the event that that happens, nothing will change immediately, right? So that could be the situation on the 1st of April, right? And that is what everybody is working towards. So therefore, that creates a lot of uncertainty. In the event that that is not the situation, and there isn't an agreement, and there isn't an extension to Article 50, because if there's an extension to Article 50, UK remains a member of the Union, and therefore the CFP applies and things go on as normal. for that period of extension, whatever that might be. So they're the two first scenarios which might mean no change. Right? And then in the event of a disorderly or no deal Brexit, technically, legally, once the UK would not be a member of the Union, the common fisheries policy doesn't apply. They become a third country, the same as Norway or Iceland, well, even more so because they're not in the EEA, but further out even, right, Canada. They become a third country, UK becomes a third country, and therefore there is no automatic access for EU vessels to UK waters or UK vessels to EU waters. However, the geography doesn't change. The UK still needs to trade. It is likely that some form of discussion will be ongoing, and therefore, for how long and at what point would they decide to implement the prohibition on access? Now, the second measure that we have in front of us here today, that you invited in on, which the Commission has made, was based on the possibility that the UK would offer reciprocal access for 2019 on the basis of the tax and quotas that were agreed last December. So for the remainder of 2019, they would offer reciprocal access, and this second proposal that's in front of us here today creates, on the EU side, a legal framework whereby we could allow our vessels into the UK and UK vessels into us and manage everything. So while they would be technically outside the EU, this reciprocal access would be granted for 2019, and we would operate under the same tax and quota regimes that we have now. So that's one possibility that can happen in a no deal Brexit. Right? And that's what that provision is there to enable in the event that that offer was made and agreed with the UK. So it's just 2019. So in that event, we wouldn't be needing temporary cessation and all that sort of thing to happen, right? So it also depends on the time period. Many fisheries are seasonal, or their particular locations are seasonal. So the mackerel fishery is wrapping up as we speak. They'll have caught all of their thing. They are traditionally dependent on catching a very large proportion in the UK zone, west of Scotland, north of Scotland. But that will be caught. That's in the